Morehouse College purports itself to be in the image and likeness politically, philosophically, socially, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They have a King Chapel. They have a big statue of King when you attend Morehouse, as I did for some years in college, and I was a faculty member there. When you go there, you can feel the energy of Dr. King all up in the building. And yet, they don't seem to be following, as an administration I'm talking about, the legacy of King when it comes to speaking against war, the legacy of King when it comes to speaking truth to power, the legacy of King when it comes to posturing oneself in a way that allows you to speak uncomfortable truths, unpopular truths. That's what you're supposed to do if you in the King tradition. So when they announced that they're gonna have Genocide Joe in the building, it was a little bit of a head scratcher. Many Morehouse alum didn't like it. Some loved it, but many didn't. The students definitely didn't love it. And so there was talk of protests, there was talk of walkouts. People were trying to figure out how to respond to Joe Biden. And the faculty, to their credit, tried to push back. So many people in the Morehouse faculty said, wait a minute, this isn't the way to go. In fact, earlier in the week, they even had a vote to see if they could give him the degree. It was like, look, we're not going to disinvite him. The president of Morehouse made that clear. But maybe we could just not give him the degree as a symbolic gesture. Well, the faculty got overruled by the mainstream middle-of-the-road handkerchief head faculty. And so they gave him the award and he gave the speech. But we were still hoping, wishing, waiting for some action at the commencement. What would happen? Would the students walk out? Would they protest? Would they turn their backs to him? What would happen? Well, when you get to the actual commencement that morning, and again, congrats to all the Morehouse graduates. I'm so proud of you, my sons. I'm always excited to see all HBCU graduates graduate, but Morehouse has a special place in my heart. Some of them, when you got there was so much energy there. There was excitement, there was tension, and it was great to see how many of the students did stand up and turn their backs. How many people did have keffiyeh around their necks, the Palestinian kind of symbol around their necks as President Biden spoke. It was great to see so many students push back against the administration's choice to continue to invite a man, Joe Biden, who isn't just prosecuting a genocide let me take that back. Netanyahu was prosecuting a genocide in Gaza. Biden is enabling a genocide in Gaza. But it's not just that. This is one of the architects of the crime bill. This is one of the architects of three strikes. This is one of the architects of some of the most draconian and harmful public policy in Black people's history here in America, post-slavery. It's indefensible, it's unjustifiable, and yet they tried to defend the indefensible at Morehouse, and it didn't work. All it did was make Biden look worse. All it did was make the bourgeois ruling class look worse. They were trying so hard to get in the White House, to be all in the videos, that they lost sight of the fact that they were undermining their own mission. This is exactly the problem of the Black middle class too often. We get excited just to be in the room. We want to be close to power, even if that power is being used against us. This was a shameful moment. And even when you watch the students stand up and turn their backs, or when it was time to applaud President Biden, the graduates sat down. But when you look on the left side of the field, you're going to see some Negroes with hats on. Those are the alum. And they stood up and cheered. Some of that is just decorum. Some of that is just respectability. But a lot of it is Negroes still believe in this place. They still believe in this country. They still believe in this party, Democrats. They still believe in this country. Don't make a whole lot of sense, but it don't take a lot to make some folk do stuff that don't make no sense. Anyway, one of the highlights for me, though, in addition to the kids turning their back, in addition to the public outcry against Biden, was the valedictorian. This young man did his best to challenge President Biden for his policy and to demand justice. Listen to what he said.
It is my stance as a Morehouse man, nay, as a human being, to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. Hear the people of this world. Sing the song of righteous justice. Thank you.
That's how you do it. He said, as a Morehouse man, I call for an immediate ceasefire. As a Morehouse man, I call for a ceasefire. He's tying the tradition to peace. He's tying the tradition to justice. He's tying the tradition to speaking out, even when it's difficult. You know how hard it is to be 21, 22 years old, critiquing American foreign policy in front of the president? Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, speak the truth, even if your voice shakes. This young man did it, and his voice didn't shake. He was strong. He was powerful. And he did what so many others refused to do. People in the Biden administration, people in Biden's White House, that is to speak up and speak out. Now, Biden stands up later, and he does all the things that Democrats do. He's like a poor man's Bill Clinton. He smiled, he laughed, he made black jokes. You all know the story of Morehouse, but let me tell it for these white people. That's the subtext. He said one day Morehouse man is going to be a president, but not before an AKA from Howard trying to get some D9 love. You know, Negroes love when a white person knows something about black culture. He said, AKA, he knows Howard. Oh, we love him because he sees us. No, knock it off, y'all. But this is what happens. He's saying all the things, but he does also do something else quite interesting. He does something else quite interesting. Biden speaks on Gaza. Biden speaks on Israel. What does he say? He says, what's happening in Gaza, I'm quoting him now, what's happening in Gaza is heartbreaking. What's happening in Gaza and Israel is heartbreaking. Hamas's vicious attack on Israel, killing innocent lives and holding people hostage. I was there 9 days after. Pictures of tying a mother and daughter with a rope, pouring kerosene on them. He starts by just breaking down this whole incident, not as an outgrowth of decades of bombardment and siege in Gaza, or decades of illegal occupation, or a century of settler colonialism. No, he starts it on October 7th, right? And I'm not surprised. That's what a lot of these middle of the road politicians do. And it's all right to condemn Hamas for October 7th. Look, I disagree with and condemn Hamas for October 7th, but he starts there. And he starts telling the most vicious and gruesome, grotesque stories about what Gazans are, or what Hamas did to Israelis allegedly. But he frames it in a way that makes one seem like an unfortunate consequence and another a product of people's gruesomeness. Let me be clear. He says Hamas's vicious attack on Israel. He talks about the kerosene and the burning and the this and the that. And then he says innocent Palestinians caught in the middle of this, men, women, and children killed or displaced in desperate need of water, food, and medicine. So what happened to Israel was a result of a vicious attack. What's happening to Hamas is just innocent Palestinians caught in the middle, as if Israel's attacks aren't vicious, as if Israel isn't strategically denying access to food, clothing, and shelter, as if Israel isn't bombing schools and churches and mosques, as if Israel isn't denying people access to water, food, and medicine, as if Israel hasn't destroyed hospitals, as if Israel hasn't struck down innocent people like World Central Kitchen who are just trying to do humanitarian aid work, like Israel hasn't killed innocent Palestinians lined up in places like the Kuwaiti roundabout, just lined up unarmed, trying to get food from a truck. But he doesn't frame it that way. So he's setting the table up with a lie. Then he says something else. He said, that's why I have called for an immediate ceasefire. An immediate ceasefire to stop the fight. Now Negroes are just cheering. Negroes are just clapping, scratching where they don't itch and laughing when they are not tickled. Okay, you call for an immediate ceasefire. Fine. Fine. What good is it to say you're calling for a ceasefire if you just sent them billions? And if you're encouraging the sending of more billions? You see, that's the dishonesty, right? It would be like if I set a house on fire and said, I'm calling for the fire to be put out, and I just keep throwing kerosene on it. Put this fire out. And I keep throwing kerosene on. Put the fire out. Pour kerosene. Yes, I am immediately calling for a permanent extinguishing of this fire, but my actions are undermining my words. You keep sending the money. You keep sending the weapons. You keep allowing them to be absolved of any kind of international accountability, President Biden. You are the problem. So please don't tell me that you call for an immediate ceasefire. That is so dishonest. You do everything you can to support this genocide.